All right, I started the recording. If you want, we could wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes, just see if anyone stops by, and then we could get started here.
Sounds like a plan. But in the meantime, Aviran, what's something that sounds incredibly boring and uninteresting to you? Like if someone was like, "Let's go do X this weekend," you'd be like, "Nah."
Gardening is the first thing that came to my mind.
There we go.
Yeah, so I'm
Oh,
hoping maybe I can get some ideas from this presentation. Maybe,
oh yeah.
yeah,
Because to me, like, whenever someone's like, "We have an idea for an AI trash sorting app," that'd be like if I said to you, "Hey, Abhinav, we should do some gardening this weekend."
yeah, yeah. I mean, I get it. I'm sure you've probably heard it a lot. So
Yeah, well, hey, I don't know where people get the idea, but it's so common. Like I've been like pitched that exact idea like at least 15 times. But B, it's also completely and totally useless. Like,
yeah,
that'd be like,
I feel like I've heard a similar ideas. I was at a hackathon, like an in-person hackathon, a couple years ago, and I feel like a number of people did their topics either on this or something very similar. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know where people keep getting this idea from, but
I have no idea. It's killing me though. Wait, hold on. I gotta figure out why this thing is spinning at us. Let's, let's see. It says waiting for Read AI to be connected. So, oh yeah, I think that was you guys actually, the Read AI. That
oh
was
yeah,
like,
yeah. That was one of our submissions, I think.
yes. So it's been following me everywhere. But yeah, like I don't see where to get rid of it. But like if we go back to like our hold on, if we go back here, it's like well, actually it's gone. It's no longer spinning at us. That's awesome.
Nice.
It's exciting. Well, if you wanna just start.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's get started.
All right. Well, I mean we've talked about the trash sorting half, but just in case someone's watching the recording, so it's like the presentation is called "Do Not Pitch Me: Yet Another Trash Sorting App." Product thinking as an engineer. The reason being, like everybody, I've heard this idea like countless times. It doesn't have a lot of value, but we'll start with what not to do. And so today, just to set the table, I'm going to give you a framework on how to think about not necessarily just inventing products, but solutioning in general that you can kind of carry through to everything in life. And then before I go into this, like a little bit about my background. So, hi Israel. A little bit about my background is I've been a product and projects manager for about I don't know, like 18 to 20 years now, and I've worked on a lot of marquee products, like mostly around like e-commerce. So like Shopify Plus. I worked with like Direct TV everywhere back when that was a thing. So on and so forth. I won't bore you with the details, but I've seen a lot of ideas and I've seen what works, right? So the rookie mistake that everybody makes, right? Because like, and I'm sure you guys saw it in the hackathon. Like, if you've talked to some of the members or some of the mentors, like there was a lot, and or if you've been in the chat, there was a lot of like, well, what should we build? We don't have any ideas. And so the problem is everybody wants to start with the idea, which is the wrong place to start, right? And so what happens, how you get things like an AI trash sorting app is you've built a great product, but the wrong product, right? And so it's the illusion that it starts with the idea. It's an idea you're interested in, and then you do discovery after you have the idea. It's a complete and total fallacy and backwards, right? So you get things that are functional but irrelevant. So like trash sorting apps, meal planners, habit trackers, which like a lot of these students that we saw, made really great looking stuff, right? So and with vibe coding, you could make an awesome looking trash sorting app, but it's not going to get you anywhere commercially. So the big failure is you started with the solution before figuring out what the problem was, right? And so, a little visual here is that everyone thinks of it as idea, build, pitch, but then nothing happens, right? Um, and it's because the idea itself, let me move us. There we go. So the idea itself is last, not first. So any good product starts with a problem, which turns into an idea. And even if you take like an old person's product, like Facebook, right? Like, which was, God, was it like 22 years ago now? If you've ever seen the movie, it started off like, Mark Zuckerberg was like, man, I would really like to make some friends and meet some girls. If only there was a place to do that, and then voila, Facebook was born, right? And yes, he did technically steal the code and the idea from people and got sued for it, but doesn't matter. Point is, they started with a problem. So engineers usually think about things in the engineering loop, right? They have an idea, they build it, then they validate it, right? Whereas the business or product thinker is thinking about that completely backwards. And I apologize for the small font here, but I'll read it to you guys. But it's like, first step is you find an acute, costly human struggle, like a pain point. Um, and then the next step is, why is there no solution for this pain point, right? From there, that's when you can get to like a hypothesis or design focused statement. And then from there, you can solution on your hypothesis. And then the feasibility, is part of it, technical feasibility. How do we build this? Like, obviously, it'd be very hard for us to build an app that makes it space travel faster, right? Wouldn't be feasible. It'd be a great idea, wouldn't be feasible, right? And then from the feasibility is where you finally get to, all right, here's our idea for the app. And so your output should be products that solve real world pain and generate return on investment, right? And we'll go into more granular details. But the first thing, because the question I got a lot when I was mentoring and judging this hackathon was, well, what should we build? Do you have any ideas? What do you think we should do? Do you think this is a good idea, right? Like the whole issue of like the backwards product thinking, right? And so what people don't realize is what a treasure trove they have, not to sound cheesy, but what a treasure trove they have in their everyday life, right? Like research subjects are everywhere. You have dinner with your mom, she's complaining about something. That's a pain point. That could be a product, right? Like you go to class, and your professor is complaining about something, or at work your boss is complaining about something, or you're walking down the street, you're eating in a restaurant. So it goes to the whole Kevin Bacon thing where it's like there's a bunch of people that that know other people, and if you're willing to have a 5-minute conversation with them, you might get to a billion million or $1 billion idea, right? So research subjects are everywhere. You got your friends, family, classmates, employers, yada yada yada, right? The right question to ask, you don't have to be this blunt about it, but I made it super blunt just for illustration purposes, is what part of your day or life is the hardest and most frustrating? And then from there you can extract real pain points, right? Let me give you a great example. So imagine if I said to you, I invented the world's greatest gardening tool. Like, I'm going to give you this shovel. It's an automatic shovel. You can dig. I know how much you love to garden. Like, you're going to dig out trees. You're going to spend your whole weekend doing it. You would not be interested because you don't like gardening, right? But let me ask you this, um, you know, and feel free to jump in. What would the two of you say, like, your biggest annoyance is on a day-to-day basis, just off the top of your head?
um, Traffic, having to wash the dishes,
It's a good one.
constantly feeling like it's either too hot or too cold in my room. These sorts of things. Organizing my tabs. I feel like I always have way too many tabs open on my computer. Uh,
I love that. Yeah, I love that. So it sounds like, in general, and tell me if I heard you correctly, your pain points all fall into the category of, well, feng shui or efficiency. Like you would love to have a more efficient life that flowed smoothly. And if there was a tool that helps you do that in some of these instances, you would be interested in it, right?
Right, exactly, to get more free time. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I love that. So just from that, like, I don't know, maybe that was 30 seconds it took you to answer that question. So we'll call it a 30-second conversation. It's like I got all sorts of great ideas, or things that we could pull on. Like, would you be interested in, a smart dishwasher? That could be a product, right? Based on what you said. Or like, what was the other one? It's either too hot or too cold in your room. Would you be interested in some sort of personal device where you could control the temperature in your own room, or like so on and so forth?
Hmm. Yeah.
And there we go. So thank you for jumping in there. All right. So pain is the product, everything else is features, right? So if you can't point to a pain point, your product doesn't exist. So if we go back to we go back to that these trash sorting apps that annoy me, right? What problem is that actually trying to solve, if any? And this could be a trick question. There might be no problem, but you know, um, off the top of your head, could you guys think of any sort of issue out there in the world at scale that a trash sorting app would fix in an elegant way?
Uh, I don't know. I can't really think of anything.
Exactly. Okay, so what is a relevant pain point, right? Well, so the first thing, what's not listed on this slide that we're looking at is number one, it has to exist. There's no pain point for trash sorting. It's like you have a bottle. If you want to make extra money, you bring it to a recycling plant. If you don't, you throw it in some sort of receptacle, right? And it's like if you're in a liberal democracy, you recycle it. If you're a southerner that lives in Texas, you throw it in the trash and nobody cares. Like it's just is what it is, right? So pain points should have a specific, recurring, and costly problem. So it should cost you time or money, or it should be so painful where you're like, oh my God, I would pay hundreds of dollars of this just for peace of mind and to not be annoyed, right? And then you got to remember too, to get specific. So, like they say, like the vague pain trap is what happens in vagueness stays in vagueness, right? So, like for example, one of the ideas that some of the students had pitched me in our hackathon was, what if there was an AI that could? There's countries out there where they're still using Scantron, right? Like you remember from back in the day, you get
Oh
a
my
piece of
gosh.
paper. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
surprised too. Nigeria, I think they were from, which is interesting because I'd asked, like, well, how much would like an Android tablet be for your entire classroom? And they're like, more money than we have. So they went with like, what if someone had a phone, it could scan Scantron and grade the test, right?
Hmm.
Um, that one is kind of tricky because on the surface, it's like, okay, there's an idea, there could be a demand for that idea, but if I had asked you two, like, all right, how big is the market for schools using Scantron, and how many dollars does that translate into if we productized it? Like, could you answer that question?
I would say probably not very much.
Same here. So when we say stay out of vagueness, we mean, all right, know your total addressable market and potential return on investment, right? So, like, for example, let's say we'll go to your annoyance over it's either too hot or it's too cold. So let's say this device we're building that's going to control the temperature just in your bedroom. Well, let's say that also works for cancer patients, right? Because they're doing chemo and they're constantly either freezing or hot because of the reaction to the drugs, right? And let's
Right.
say Insurance is willing to pay for something like that because they want cancer patients to be comfortable. And let's say there's 300 million people with cancer in any given year, and our device could retail for $500 that insurance will write us a check for. So I can't do the math in my head, but let's call that, I don't know, $1 billion, right? Just for fun. So we know, like, okay, so we now have a pain point that could be worth $1.5 billion, you know? So any questions on that? Because that is a super useful tool, and I want to make sure you guys are with me on that.
I think it's cool how it scales like that to notice like wow, yeah, it's actually
Mhm.
like a big problem if people are willing
Yeah.
to pay this much for it. You can end up, having a like $1 billion
Yep.
idea, like you said.
Yeah, and so it's being willing to do the math on your problem. So if we go back to my old person's example of Mark Zuckerberg, so there's 50 states in the United States, and each state has, like, let's say at least four colleges, right? And let's say all of those colleges have at least 2,000 students, right? So, like, all right, if you're going to build a Facebook for college kids, which was its initial intended purpose, right? It obviously got gargantuan and huge and went in all these different directions. But if we go back to 2004, he was like, all right, there's like, I don't know, I can't do the math in my head, but let's call that like a few million users that would care about this product and want to use it, right? Um, that's a good thing to know. So then also too, like the sharp signal, right? So that's knowing like what the opportunity cost of getting rid of the pain is, right? So like the example here is reconciling spreadsheets takes 3 hours of my time every Friday, but there's thousands of examples of this. It could be like you spend you miss out on 2 hours of work a day because you're constantly getting up to adjust the air conditioning or the heater, right? Or it could be what was another example you gave besides the temperature one? There
I
was it
said
traffic?
having like a lot of tabs open on my computer, maybe something to automatically close tabs you haven't used in a while, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I think there could be a good amount of ideas with that. I mentioned traffic. I mentioned a lot
Yep.
of chores, the dishwasher thing, um, having to
Oh, I
water the
love that. Okay.
plants.
Here's a great question. So how much is your time worth? And you can't say priceless, right? But let's say in like if you were going to work a job in your industry, like how much would like roughly ballpark an hour of your time be worth?
Uh, I would love if an hour of my time was worth like
Hmm?
$45.
Nice. Well, let's go with 50 to make the math easy, right?
All
So let's
right.
say like 4 hours of your day is wasted on all the stuff you just mentioned. So like chores, adjusting the thermostat, traffic, right?
Yeah.
So it's $200 a day, and that's 2 4 6 8. So it's like a $1,400 a week, right? So it's costing you like about 5 grand a month.
Wow.
All of these things that annoy you, like, yeah, crazy to think about, right?
Yeah.
So, but imagine if I could solve all your pain points. So if I'm like, hey, you give me $1,000 for all of these gadgets, and now all of a sudden you have, you know, 4 hours a day that are free, where you could now make $200 in that 4 hour period, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those are the kind of things you want to look for, because if you get out in the corporate world, and so I've seen like where there's always a guy, I'm sure you've met this guy. There's always a guy that is on your development team that's super, super smart, right? And he'll be like, I'm like a project products manager, right? So everybody comes to me. So they'll always come to me and say, like, oh my God, like, we need to refactor Datadog so that our databases are more secure, right? And they'll be able to explain it in a way that makes sense. Like, we could get hacked, and if we get hacked, we're an e-commerce site, so there's all these credit cards that are going to be in the hands of villains, and then we're going to make the news, and everyone's going to laugh at us, right? but it falls flat when they try to explain it to the executives, right? They'll be like, we need to refactor Datadog. And the executives will be like, why? How does that make me money? And there's all these other things on the roadmap. I don't care. And they won't give you buy-in, right? Whereas if you could say, you got to be able to quantify, like if you could say like, hey, getting hacked is going to lose us 40% of our revenue because no one is going to trust us with their credit cards, and we are high value merchants that sell gold, let's say, right? So yeah, so I know I've been rambling on a lot. Does anybody have any
Oh.
questions, comments at this point?
No, I like your perspective on like it's
Oh,
important
thank you.
to provide those like quantitative numbers so you can really showcase the impact and how important like even just 4 hours of my time I feel like I kind of just bat that
Yep,
away. I'm like, oh, I have to take care of these things, but I don't really realize how much that time actually could be worth.
I know it's a beautiful thing, you know. So then, how we do make the transition, right? Is we go from complaint to design brief, right? So the golden formula is you have to have an elevator pitch, right? So every project needs one sentence detailing user action, root cause, and cost, right? So if we take your basic user story format, like we'll use Disney as an example, and let's say we're going to revamp the Disneyland app, and let's say we want a feature where families can split up and track each other on their iPhones, right? So it'd be like, as a parent, right, user, uh, I want to be able to track my kids on the Disneyland app, root cause, so that we can split up and do what we want to do. And then obviously the cost is ancillary to that. And so then we figure like that'll be like it'll lead to like a 20% uplift in food sales because parents are going to be all hungry instead of standing in line while the kids are waiting in line for
Mhm.
Space Mountain, right? Just as like a made up example. And so then, but you got to remember, so your North Star is not your feature list. It's the reason why you're doing it. And that's what protects you from scope creep, right? So let's say your whole goal of revamping the Disneyland app is a better customer experience. And let's say you want a better customer experience because you want to get them through the park faster so that they spend more money and so that you can get more people into the park, right? So then you would know like if there's something like I don't know, what's something that wouldn't pertain to that? Like someone's like, hey, what would be really cool is um to have a story behind each ride that people can read as a feature, right? Well, you could kind of knock that right out of the backlog because you're like, well, yeah, that sounds cool, but it doesn't fulfill our mission of a faster and better experience at Disney World, you know?
Right,
And so then what you want to have is ruthless, unforgivable focus, right? So just having a strong one line product statement saves you months of waste by clarifying what you are not building, you know?
right, right.
So, like an example that we use here is oh man, reconciling my expense reports every week is so exhausting. I hate looking at all those receipts and matching them up to my spreadsheet. It literally ruins my Friday. If we go back to that, I spend 3 hours making a spreadsheet every Friday, right? So our form, our North Star would be like, make expense reports easy. And so then your design brief would be like, all right, a finance admin is struggling to reconcile receipts because of manual matching, and the cost is 3 hours every Friday is lost, where he has to sit down at his desk and redo what he's already done, right? So I'll give you, I always love this picture, right? I'll give you an example of a painful process that could have been improved, right? This was one of my projects. I was at DirecTV, and you're gonna laugh when I tell you what we're actually doing. So the all of this that you're looking at, right? All the colored boxes represent departments with people in it. All the white boxes represent systems or automations, right? And what we were doing here was serving an ad to traditional TV subscribers that would just be like, you can get HBO for 50% off. And in order to do that, you had to go through all of these different steps, right?
Oh my
Super,
god.
super painful. I know. So here, this makes a great example though of what we've been talking about because they knew that they wanted to upsell and retain their customers because they were like, okay, it's hard to get new customers, but we could make an easy $500 million by just keeping the ones we have and then upselling them like hey Abhinav, you like HBO, how would you like HBO for 50% off for 6 months? And you're like, great, click, and you get it, right? um okay, so what drove this particular project was that there was already buy-in on, we think, I mean, but they thought they could make a 500 million. What it actually ended up being was 250 million, right? So like about 200 million. And it took them 6 months. So that process that I just showed you right here, this was a 6-month process from ideation to we start getting data on how much customers accepted the ad and how much money we're making, right? Long
Mhm.
time just to put a picture on a television screen. Um, so it started off with the pain point of it takes us 6 months to put a picture on a television, right?
Yeah.
And then as we delved into it, there was like, okay, so is the tech the problem? No, the tech's not the problem. It's the fact that we have all of these silos that have to touch this process, right? And so we didn't start by saying like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if we revamped our entire systems for like, $7 million to be a flashy app that's going to sell our customers. So we didn't start with that. We started with, all right, we think we could make, $250 million. It takes us 6 months to make that $250 million. What's the problem, right? And we figured out the problem was process, not necessarily systems. And so it's interesting, right? And here's how it's so like, okay, so in that project, it made 250 million, cut the time to go through all of those processes from 6 months to 4 months, right? Okay, results. Didn't do quite as well as I thought, but we're just talking about the mindset, right? But here's the thing: if you want to talk about product thinking, what would have been super cool is automating the marketing and reporting, right? Because the people we were going to serve the ads to was completely and totally manual, dependent on somebody coming up with an idea, going into Salesforce, making a report, meeting with a bunch of people to sell them on, this is the customer base we want to hit, and it ate all this time, right? But imagine, like, because Salesforce has a autonomous AI agent, right? Imagine if Salesforce was like, hey, here's all your customer data. Um, you're leaving all this money on the table. Here's the exact amount of money you're leaving on the table. Here's the exact offerings you need to offer. Here's the exact timeline, and ran it through the system, right? And then imagine if there's an autonomous agent that talked to that the other long pole, if you will, was setting up the billing systems, right?
Hmm.
That was like 6 weeks worth of work. What if there's an autonomous agent that just set the products up in the billing system, and you just had one resource going in and checking those to make sure they were set up correctly, right? And then at the end, this is the part that always got me. The reporting was completely manual, even though we had Snowflake, we had Salesforce, and we had Kubernetes, I think was the third one. All of which could be automated to just give you the world's best reporting. And they would manually go into Snowflake and manually make the dashboards and manually import the Salesforce data. And that took another, I don't know, let's say 2 to 3 weeks, right? So imagine if we could have had like an almost fully autonomous agent that made us money in our sleep. Like, does that sound more interesting? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. All right. So, any questions, comments, concerns so far?
Uh, Not much from me, but unfortunately, I think Israel had to leave.
Oh,
Um,
oh, did we bore him to death?
no, no, no. He said he actually left something in the chat. Let me see if I can pull it up. He said, "Wow, the presentation is so good, but I'm going to have to leave. See you then at the next meeting." So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really well done. I like
Oh,
this
thank you.
example in particular. I think yeah, I mean, this just hearing it like from you, it sounds so convenient compared to the way
Oh, thank you.
it's been done. Like taking like just having this agent here instead of having to spend 2 to 3 weeks
Yeah.
making a website and all that. Yeah, it definitely feels
Well,
like this could have been a solution.
I'm about to blow your mind even further, my friend. So a real okay, so that was a real project that I just showed you, but that solution I showed you was not real. It was what I thought in hindsight could have been cooler, right?
Right.
But here's one where we actually did that, right? So we had a public utility in San Antonio, Texas. They had all right, you know what like a Philips Hue light bulb does?
Um, I think I've seen one before. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like these LED light bulbs with a computer chip in them, and you can like control them with your phone. So you'd say
Oh,
like
wait, do they link to
be
like the
blue.
smart homes and stuff?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
we had an entire city of those as the streetlights, which was super cool, right? And so the pain point that it sprung from was they couldn't tell if a streetlight was out or where it was initially, right? And so you had things like they made the news like that, like they really there was this scathing news report where there were these low income neighborhoods where streetlights were just out for weeks, which is not great optics, right? And in addition to that, they had all these trucks going out to repair streetlights that weren't broken. They couldn't figure out which ones were broken, so on and so forth, right? So the pain point they started with was we made the news and we're embarrassed and we're wasting all this money on truck rolls, as they called them, right?
Hmm.
So we built this. So this was exactly what I was showing you with the direct TV thing, except in practice, right? So the white boxes representing automation, the black boxes representing where you need human intervention. And so the product was taking a feed. So the first part was they put in those smart street lights that broadcasted on something called telenetics, right? And so the goal was to take that feed on a geolocatable grid and plug it into various systems. So the call center, customer websites, so on and so forth, to where things would happen in an automated fashion. So the customer would manually kick off a report if they saw something, or if a light went out, it could kind of tell you it was out and it ran its way through the system or whatever, right? There are all these entry points, and then from those entry points, you'd have these things that would happen, like someone would then create a work order. They'd go through a database every day and click like fix this, fix this, fix this. It would send it to a field crew that was out there in the field on an iPad, right? And so they knew exactly where to go, exactly what to do. And so then they would go, this part represents them kind of out in the field fixing the streetlights, right? And then there was a couple of things that would happen from there. They'd go on their iPad and they'd be like, it's fixed. They would send it back through the system. And so they would get paid because they were a third party vendor. It would come out of the city budget, right? Because there's the accounting principle. And then if it started off with a customer report, the customer would get an email that's like, your street light's back on. You're welcome, right? And what I loved about this project is it was so elegant that it made up for the fact that there were underserved neighborhoods sitting in darkness for 6 weeks. Everyone just forgot about it, right? It ended up like hold on, it ended up winning like an international award and like all sorts of crazy stuff, you know? So all right. So now just to make sure we've been paying attention this time. So if you were going to come up with the next $1 million idea, how would you do it?
Uh, well, you mentioned the idea comes last. So first, I would
Yep.
search for a pain point. Um, maybe something just. I mean, you mentioned like you have the resources of your friends and family around you. Um,
Yep.
so maybe just pay attention when I'm talking to them. Figure out some sort of solution,
Mhm.
or not some sort of solution, but some sort of problem that they experience. Um, and then I kind of focus on that and see, okay, potentially how much are people willing to pay for this?
Mhm.
How much time can I save people?
Yep.
What does my market, my target audience look like? And how much, could I potentially reasonably make? Um,
Mhm.
and then, like you mentioned with the direct TV example, potentially look into a way that you could replace something that already exists with
Yep.
perhaps an automated solution, like similar to this automated streetlights example, um,
I
where
love
it
it.
wouldn't be so manual. So I think that's kind of the,
Yeah.
the path I would take.
You get a round of applause. You've been
Thank
paying
you.
attention.
Yeah, I've been trying.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
it's been very engaging, so it hasn't been hard to pay attention.
Oh, well, you're too kind. All right. So that was well said, what you said, right? So at the point that you are at in your explanation, now you can have ideas and you can have more than one, right? So you earn the right to brainstorm after you deeply understand the friction, right? And so then, and here's this part that engineers love. So then it becomes a battle royale, so to speak. So it's like the best you can come up with as many ideas as you want in a brainstorm and allow them to fight against each other to see which one is the best, right? And so what I like about this is everybody has their biases, right? So it gets around bias. Like, is it just are we doing this just because I want to do this, or does it actually solve a problem? It filters out the bad ideas and lets the cream rise to the top, and then it also gives you, as they say in Hollywood, the ability to build on a sequel, right? So let's say you got some ideas that are great, like we take my Disneyland app one where the guy was like, I want PDFs on the history of each ride. That would make a great backlog item. So then it's like, sometime in the future, we're out of ideas. It's like, hey, let's pull this one off, dust it off, and build it. So, you have it's interesting because when you start with the idea, you're very limited and pigeonholed to this tiny little box. But if you start with the
Right.
pain, like the world just opens up, and then the sky is the limit. And then this is kind of a methodology to kind of filter out the stronger versus the weaker ideas. So then the last slide, let me move us, is okay. So in short, the sequence is just talk to people or live life, like you could be the person. Figure out what the pain points are and quantify them. Then you come up with a problem statement. So who's this for? What's their struggle? What's the root cause of that struggle? And what is it costing them? What is this pain point costing them, right? Then it's like, you brainstorm your hypothesis, like we could do this to fix that, or we could do this, or we could do this. And then once you've gotten your hypothesis, then, you pick the technology and you build it. Whereas like I noticed a lot of the students were like, hey, we just decided we liked this LLM, and then we want to build something off of it, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's the whole point of being a student is you should be experimenting but it's like that's the last part. It's like, all right, we have a fleshed out idea, and here's the technology we think would be the best to accomplish that. Like we want to sell T-shirts, let's say. We think Shopify is the best or whatever, you know?
Hmm.
So then the little freebie, and if you want to take a screenshot, actually, really quick, I was hoping everyone could just keep this for themselves.
Sure
But
thing. I'll take a screenshot and see if
nice,
I can send. I'll try and make it nice and big in the video, so hopefully everyone can see it.
beautiful. Yeah, so it's like, so because I understand, like, if you've never done this before, you might not know where to start. So, like, a cheat sheet, which is the thing on the right is the cheat sheet, right? Is what's the most like exactly what we talked about. What's the most frustrating recurring task in your day or job? And you were like, oh man, traffic, dishes, chores, you know. How often does it happen? How long it takes? You're like, oh, every day it's like a couple hours. Well, what I didn't ask you though, which we should have, is like, well, what have you tried to do to fix it? What didn't work? You know, what would actually I did ask you what a perfect solution would look like to you, and you told me. And then I did ask you if this problem disappeared tomorrow, what would your life look like? You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so these things will really get you to a good product, you know?
mhm.
And that's it. That's all I got.
Uh, I was actually typing up a couple
Mm,
questions as we were going.
great.
So if you don't mind, I'll ask you those now. I think
I don't mind at all.
this is a great pipeline to follow. Like I feel like I've always been someone who's kind of maybe been trapped a little bit by starting with the idea. Um, and I think that
We all start off that way, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's been times I've been like, "Oh, well, I have this problem," but then immediately
Mm,
I jump to the idea right after that, the solution, and I don't
yep.
think of all this stuff in between. Um, all this all this stuff I should definitely be thinking about.
Yep.
But I just want to ask you a couple questions. So, um,
Sure.
you know, um, you said you were a project manager, correct?
Mhm.
So right, so people
Yes.
come to you with their ideas. So what are some of
Mhm.
the best ideas that have been pitched to you, and why did you think they were the best? What did the presenter maybe do that stood out a little bit that made you want to consider it?
Actually, I'll give you an example because I don't want to play favorites in our hackathon. So I'll give you examples from another hackathon I judged. The idea that just floored me, like where I was like, you gotta do this, was there were these high school girls. There's another organization called Technovation Girls, right? And so organization to kind of further women in STEM, but like young women. So like from like let's say fourth grade through seniors in high school, right? And so the
Right,
high school seniors did a pitch where they wanted to have a point of sale system for nonprofits like thrift stores, Goodwills, because they went around, or one of them maybe had been working at one of these places. I forget the details, but they'd basically like done a lot of research, and they were like, there are all these nonprofits that need this special form of data that a big box retailer wouldn't need. And so they invented, it was a combination of an inventory management system and a point of sale to where it would like push out to the website, or it worked in store if someone came in, like it integrated with the cash register. And I thought this was the greatest idea that I'd seen in like anything that's ever been pitched to me in one of these hackathons, just because it's my industry. Like I've worked in e-commerce, and I
right,
know for a fact that it had a commercial appeal. Now where they failed, I almost gave them a perfect score too. Like, you know, like in our hackathon where, like, where you're scoring people, like
right,
I think it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, like they got like a 9.7, only because they, you know, they're young. They said as like a business model, they wanted to give it away for free to nonprofits and charge big enterprises for it. And I felt like their product would have been really, really incredible in the nonprofit space, but nobody in the enterprise would be interested in it really, because it didn't. There's was millions of competitors, so they found like a niche, but then they lost it a little bit on the revenue and total addressable market. You know.
right. That's a really cool idea, though. For sure, I think, especially if they were able to kind of present that across, I feel like
Yeah.
for sure that would be for someone on the other end, that would
Yep.
be very interesting to consider.
Really
Uh,
impressed. Like
yeah.
I hope they win, but they're picking the winners. What's the date? Yes, they're on the same timeline as us actually. So
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
yeah,
That's cool. Okay, I have one more question prepared. So
sure.
now kind of flip that and now say, okay, you're presenting something to say your boss. What are
Yes.
maybe like three tips that you would say are the best for presentation? Because you've talked a lot about how you generate this idea from scratch and how you actually start with the
Yep.
problem. But once you have maybe the solution and you're trying to present it, what would you say are like the most important things to keep in mind for a presentation like that?
I love that question. Hold on, I gotta show you some examples. So, like number one, especially in the days of vibe coding, right? Visual. You want to be visual because I can talk till I'm blue in the face, right? But all right, so this is what like people like whenever I do a job interview, I show this and people love it, right? And I also show them that direct TV thing because I'll get the question like, tell me about a time where you had to bring together siloed departments to blah blah blah, right? But what I like about something like this is like so I basically took Adobe has a version of this that looks like that DirecTV flowchart, just endlessly cavernous, right? But
Hmm.
this right here is like sort of like a dumbed down executive flowcharts when they're like, well, what did you do? It's like, well, we built the world's first business to business cloud commerce system on Adobe with SAP as their source of truth, right? And so it's visual, looks good. Um, and it's dumbed down for the executive. And if you get an engineer that's like, yeah, well, what about the IDP? It's like, all right, well, that's in there. It explains what it does,
Well,
you know?
includes everything for everyone.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. And then all these dots represent how the APIs, what directions they moved in. So was it bi-directional? Was it blah, 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 blah. So, sorry, but I know there's a long answer to a short question. So point number one is be visual, right? Or like another one that I use a lot is I did a whole presentation on this. You'll love this. Was what do you do when you got to sell somebody on something they don't want to do, right? And so it's like I made an interactive game where I took a real example and you go through a decision tree and it tells you if you screwed up or not, right? The goal is to make this number hit 1 billion, and if you keep picking the wrong choices, you don't get to 1 billion, and it tells you why you've messed up and analyzes it, right? So
Wow,
I
that's
like that.
cool.
But the other two key points are not visual, but point number two would be everybody is selfish, not in a negative way, but you are very good at being you. You know how you think, you know what goes on in your head. And so, like most people walk into a sales pitch or a job interview or a presentation to their boss from the vantage point of what do I want? Whereas you have to flip that and think about what do they want, right? And so like an engineer will always be thinking about how can we make the best engineered thing possible, whereas an executive will not care about that. They'll want to know, is this going to make me money? Is this going to save me money? Or is this going to streamline an organizational process? And then the third point, which is a little bit more abstract, but I think it's something that everybody could benefit from practicing, is tying the value proposition to the pain point, right? So, like, I'll give you an example. So, let's say I was going to pitch you on, oh, okay, let's say I was going to pitch you on, you should let me do a panel for DSH hacks, right?
Hmm.
And, we're talking, and I'm like, well, what'd you think of some of the panels last year? And you're like, oh, they were good, but I just didn't find them interesting, right? And so I mean, I'm not saying that they weren't interesting, but let's say that's what you said, right? I'd be listening and going, okay, so he wants something innovative and not boring. So then I might say to you, hey, well, what if I told you for my panel, I'm going to have an interactive audience participation panel that is going to keep people engaged and is going to change lives and is going to ensure that thousands and thousands of people join your hackathon next year, like you'd probably be pretty interested in that, right?
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, but imagine if I came to you, I'm like, oh, well, I want to give a panel because I'm a project manager and I have this very interesting thing to show you, and it's not as interesting, right?
Yeah, I mean, from my end, like
Yeah.
for me, yeah, it doesn't sound, like it would have as much of a benefit.
Yeah. So I guess, sorry, hold on. So what was the thing? Oh yeah. So it was be visual. Think about what's in it for me, but from their perspective. So what's in it for them, and then marry your pain points to your value prop in a foolproof way are the three things.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a great response for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
I appreciate that you explained each one in depth as well. That's great. Um, yeah, I mean, I didn't
Yes.
have any more questions prepared for you, so maybe if you have any like
Nice.
final closing words or anything you want to add.
Actually, yes. All right. So we'll talk about one of the projects I judged for us, right? Just because they did that three-part thing I told you really well. Is the project was an interactive app where you could pick your course of study path for a science or STEM degree, right?
Right.
And I thought that was fair because obviously, like I got a communications degree, so if like I didn't realize how infinite your choices are in STEM. And so they did a good job of saying, like, okay, when you are a science student, your whole life depends on the decisions you make early on, but there are so many decisions and it's hard to know which one, right? And so they're
Right.
like, our app is interactive. You click on it and it'll say, like, I like biology. And it'll go, great, you need these four courses and you can get these jobs, right?
Hmm.
And I really like that because I could see college students really getting a lot of value out of that.
Yeah, and I think even maybe even high schoolers like going into college trying to
Yeah,
maybe pick their major,
yeah,
pick their degree. I feel like that would be really useful actually. I know some exist, but a lot of them are not really that great. They kind of just ask you like, "Hey, are you interested in chemistry? Maybe you should major in chemistry." Like that's,
yep.
pretty surface
No, they
level.
didn't do that. Like they're
Yeah.
yeah, that's the other thing too. Like they I don't think I can't remember if I played around with the app or they just showed a video of the app, but whatever they did, I was like, yeah, that right there is the perfect example of there's a pain point that they were able to really, really, really explain well, and then a valuable solution to that pain point that fits.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think that was a great example to provide. All right,
Well,
well,
thank you.
yeah, I think if we don't have anything else, maybe we can call it here.
Nice. Oh, quick question for you.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so I also have a Q&A scheduled for like 30 minutes from now. So am I doing that separately or was that part of this?
So I noticed you submitted the form twice. So typically I think what we were
Because
planning, I
it
might
said
have to,
to.
yeah, I might. Oh, yeah. I mean, I wasn't the one who made the form, but I think what the
Yeah.
plan was, when I discussed it with the judges, is that it
Mhm,
would be 1 hour in total, including the Q&A session. Unfortunately,
mhm.
it was just me and the Q&A this time around. Um,
No, I mean, I
but
was happy to talk to you.
yeah, yeah, it was fun for sure. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we can probably have it here if you want to have another sort of presentation or another Q&A thing. You can let me know. Maybe we'll try and get more people involved. But I also think
Yeah.
this video is going to be posted to YouTube. The last one we posted got a fair
Yep.
amount of views, so I'm hoping maybe
Nice.
they can contact you. I'll leave like maybe your
Yeah.
contact in the description, or they
Yeah,
can
that'd be
comment on
great.
the video, whatever it would be, so we can get all the questions in.
Yeah. Well, I'd say yeah. If there's demand for it, I'm happy to donate my time. But if like people are like, we saw the video, we don't need to talk to him, that's fine too. Just let me
No,
know.
yeah,
All right. So
I,
then
I really
should we
appreciate you
cancel?
donating your time.
Oh, it's my. I had a lot of fun. All right. So should we cancel this thing at 9:30 then, or?
Um, Probably best to do that for now. I'm not sure if anyone will be attending that today. So
Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, so we did it earlier is my reason for canceling.
yeah,
Well, cool.
um,
Well, yeah. Well, thank you for your time. Like
yeah.
you were a great audience.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, and thank you for your presentation and everything. I feel like this is great advice.
Yeah.
Even as someone just kind of coming in expecting the proctor, I feel like I can't. I'm coming out of this with so much information to
Nice.
apply to my next hackathon. So
Yeah. And then you
that's
got
great.
my contact info, right? You can you can email me anytime you want, my friend. Like if you just want to talk, you got questions, like don't be shy. So
I might take you up on that offer. Yeah,
yeah,
I do have your email, so I will let you know
yeah, good.
if I have any more questions or anything like that.
Beautiful.
All right.
All right. Well,
Well,
thank you.
thank you so much. Take care. Have a great rest of your
Yeah,
day.
you too. Bye.
Bye.